Now,
disappointing when you fuck a guy for over an hour and he just go.
Did anybody recognize you from film in the industry? They did? Okay. Well, I just come and you gotta do what you gotta do.
You are such an advocate. One thing is what I love is I love seeing a lot of the beautiful women that's in the industry as sex advocates.
And I would set up crystals on their body based off of their chakra. And the crystals, what they do is if they sit long enough, they begin to like permeate through the body. They begin to expand through the body and they create a bridge.
I shot with John Q too. You know, John Q, you know, I'm the first big girl, but he did his side, you know, his side. Yeah. But
I would, and I have given my last dime to people. I've given when I should have just watched. And it's not always about giving financially. It's giving your space and your time and your energy.
so that's kind of like a 50-50 answer, what I got. That wasn't really a yes or no answer.
I think I actually would, and this is of course the therapist in me, I would be asking them, like, tell me how this is celibacy for you.
So what's first there, Anne?
I shoot them just like I would be shooting a regular female. So you don't put the emphasis on that, so it makes it more consistent with the title of being transgender
I have a
woman.
really good friend. She lives here in Atlanta. I met her on a porn set. She wrote a book called From Porn to the Pulpit. Now, I won't say she was like this super... Yeah, she's my best friend. She's my best friend. Her name is Danielle Williams McCord. She wrote an amazing book called From Porn to the Pulpit. She's been preaching for 10 years now, but I met her on a porn set.
In any business that you find yourself in. Because definitely for me, like, you know, creating a product to push to the consumer, and for me, everything was consumer driven. If they didn't want it, I'm not gonna make it because I knew it.
Felt like if we kept our head a little below the sagebrush, that we would just be able to keep on going without any interference or anything like that. But that's
like, dude, I'm sitting in like the dressing room, like just with all the 20-year-olds and 22-year-olds, 25-year-olds. I'm like, how old are you? Oh, I'm 25. I'm like, how old are you? I'm 23. And I'm like, dude, I'm 30.
Before I leave the house, I feel like the last look. You know, this is how I feel, this is what I'm thinking, you know. Now, when I get out and interact with other people, it's going to be where it is.
Right, okay.
Welcome to a podcast like no other. Get ready for insightful conversations, diverse perspectives, and a touch of inspiration. This is Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. Join your host, the dynamic Nyomi Banks, as she delves into the heart of various topics with a refreshing blend of curiosity and wisdom. Each week, tune in as Nyomi is joined by special guests who bring their unique stories and expertise to the table. It's a journey of discovery, learning, and growth. And let's not forget about the one and only dog pound Mike, adding his flavor and flair to the mix. Together, they make a dynamic duo you won't want to miss. From thought-provoking discussions to moments of laughter and joy, Ask Nyomi. Bridging the Gap podcast offers a space where great topics meet amazing guests. So, mark your calendars, set your reminders, and prepare to be entertained and enlightened. Join Nyomi Banks and Dog Pound Mike weekly for an unforgettable podcast experience. Get ready to bridge the gap, expand your horizons, and immerse yourself in the world of Ask Nyomi. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a podcast journey like no other.
All right, hey, my beautiful people. It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast. This is what we talk about: love, sex, relationship, cultural differences, and so much more, while bridging the gap between them all and teaching the world on sex, language, attitude, and spiritual uplifting. What is going on, Dog Punk Mike?
It's all good, all good. Glad to be back.
All right, and hey, to all of my BTG crew out there as well. Today we have a very special guest that is coming on. I'm actually quite excited to have her on here because she has a certain thing she talked about falling in love with self. When I got her whole media thing that came over to me, I told Brian I have to have her on, truly. So this is what I want to do. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and then we're going to bring this beautiful young lady onto the stage, because I believe it's something definitely that you guys need to hear. All right. It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast. We'll be right back.
Washington Wellness Institute focuses on healing always. For me, if I look good, then I feel good. If I feel good, then I share the good. If I share the good, then I celebrate the good. If I celebrate the good, then I live the good. So I can be paid to be my greatest. But I have to learn the good to be the good.
So, what does it take to be the greatest? It's as simple as a free 15-minute consultation. Be kind to yourself and heal always.
Welcome to the Season of Self-Love podcast with Nyomi Banks, where every day is a chance to embrace self-discovery and personal growth. Join Nyomi on a transformative journey, streaming exclusively on Spotify and Breaker. With daily episodes from Monday through Friday, podcast is your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and self-love. Dive deep into engaging conversations about self-care, mindfulness, and personal development. Nyomi brings you expert insights, practical tips, and uplifting stories from thought leaders in the field. Embark on a journey of self-discovery and unlock the power of self-love. Mark your calendars and tune in to the Season of Self-Love podcast. Available every weekday on Spotify and Spreaker. Remember, it's time to prioritize yourself and embrace the beautiful season of self-love. Get inspired and join Nyomi Banks on the Season of Self-Love podcast.
All right, well, welcome back. It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast. Again, welcome everyone to my BTG crew, Dog Pound Mike. We have a beautiful young lady that is coming to the stage. She is not only a yoga instructor and a lifestyle guru, but she is an entrepreneur, an author, and she owns the company called Habibi Sport and Bodywear. And so I'm going to bring to the stage Miss Shahada Karim.
Hello.
Hi, beautiful. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I am truly well. I was doing a little research on you when Brian sent over your information to me. And I said, Brian, I have to have her on. I have to have her on. Because first of all, you speak the same language that I speak. So when I went to your website and the first thing that I saw was fall in love with yourself.
Yep.
Fall in love with yourself. Yes. So let me ask you this. What is your self-love language?
My self-love language is solitude.
Solitude. I like that. Solitude. So do this for me. Because I know I didn't give you your justice of introducing you. So if you can tell everybody what it is that you do and just who are you? Who is Shahada Karim?
I am a yoga instructor, but I'm also a wellness advocate, and I believe in self-care from both sides. So inside out and outside in. So I own a skincare company, Habibi Body, and I own a nutrition and fitness company, Habibi Sport. Both of those things encompass a 360-degree program to help you get to know yourself and to help you fall in love with yourself.
I love that. So how did you come to create that whole, 360 degrees? I love that. That's one thing I love. And then I want to actually go because I can really jump in. Here, so I really want to jump in. But how did you come, to creating that?
they say that necessity is the mother of invention, right? So I started with skincare. In 2003, I started with skincare because I had cystic acne, hyperpigmentation, highly reactive skin. My skin did not like anything. It would work for 2 weeks and then stop working. Almost everything I used always started out, it was great for like that week to 10 days, and then it would backfire. And I used everything from, and this is me dating myself, from Seabreeze. I don't know if you remember Seabreeze.
Yes, I do.
I used everything from Seabreeze to Estee Lauder's Night Repair when it first came out in the 90s. I was in college. And because I thought if you spend more money,
you get better,
then it'll work better. So my journey really started when my acne started, which was at about 10 years old. And I had acne. I had severe acne until my mid 40s. Real talk. And I learned how to stop attacking my skin. I used to attack my skin. I learned how to be kind to it. That took a very long time. A lot of trial and error. I went from spending, $10 to $500 on Sicily and sublimage. I went there. Like if it, maybe I needed to spend that much money in order to make it work, and nothing ever worked. So I got really interested in the way things are made. I started really paying attention to ingredients, and I found out that more expensive is not always better.
Right.
And I also found out that the best way to take care of my skin is from the outside in and from the inside out. I also had to change my diet because a lot of my regular habits created a lot of inflammation, which would show up on my skin, which I would then attack. It was a whole thing. So I started Habibi Body, the skincare company, in 2003. I started as a professional yoga instructor in 2009. And then I started Habibi Body Sport once I developed my own technique, once I found out what kind of teacher I was. And once I got enough education and enough training in nutrition and Ayurveda, I started Habibi Body Sport in 2018. Now those two companies reflect each other. So one is inside out, nutrition and fitness, and one is outside in, skincare.
So let me ask you this: when I was reading on your website, you had the Habibi, and I hope I'm saying Habibi. Thank you, Habibi body technique. Describe what it is and what does it do for the body.
The Habibi Body technique is both physical and esoteric. So if you look at the description, it'll give you the physical description of what I'm asking of you, which is center out movement. I'm asking you to move from your spine and from the core muscles that wrap around your spine to your extremities, to your legs, to your feet, to your arms, to your hands. So we start in the center of the body and we move out. Everything is concentrated in the center, because if you have center body control, what we commonly know as core control, you can do amazing things with your body. So we teach strength, endurance, flexibility, and balance at the same time. So all of those things happen in one compound movement. Esoterically, we particularly address the 3 chakras in the bottom half of your body. Muladhara, which is at the base of your coccyx, your Svadhisthana, which is in your hips, and your Manipura, which is right behind the belly button. So Muladhara is your ancestry, that's your roots. Those are where you develop your samskara, where you develop your patterns, your habits. They typically come from scars, from trauma. The way that we move through the world as children and ultimately as adults has a lot to do with the way that we responded to whatever stimulus came towards us in our formidable years. A lot of times we have to unlock that. So we deal with your roots. We deal with your sensuality, not to be confused with your sexuality. Your Svadhisthana is your sensuality, non-verbal communication, how you express yourself without speaking, how you move your body. I can watch a student, the way that they move in a public space, because some of my classes are public, in a public space, and I can tell a lot about their samskara. I can tell a lot about their patterns because of the way that they're moving on their mat. If they're hesitant, if they're aggressive, if they're angry at themselves because they don't nail it right away. A lot of that comes through in their nonverbal communication. And the last thing we address is your Manipura, which is your confidence, your creativity, and your expression of I am. We specifically focus on those 3 chakras because those are the chakras that are typically suppressed in our society and are particularly suppressed in women. We do not discuss our roots, where we came from, because we don't want anyone to disapprove of us. We have a very difficult time expressing our sensuality because often we confuse it with our sexuality. And we often have a hard time with I am, with standing up and being like I am without excuses, without apology. We tend to have a hard time with that because in our society, we are told to tamper that down. We have a lot of anahata, right? We got a lot of heart. Women are always so nurturing and empathetic, but the bottom half is often ignored. We're normally up here. We're normally empathetic. We love everybody here. Let me take care of you. Let me feed you. Let me clothe you. Let me look after you. We forget to look after ourselves, but please let me look after you, right? We speak a certain way so that we will be approved of, and we cultivate community a certain way, right? And all of that leads to our final connection to the crown chakra. But often this is on, we operate from here to here. We never operate from here down. This is always suppressed. So the Habibi body technique will address that.
You know, I love that you said, so as you were speaking, my whole body is just shaking. It's just like shift, and this is good. That means your energy is transferring energy to me, and it's feeling good because I've always talked about the chakra, and I've always used, as you say, part of my chakra. Honestly, I've never used the root outward, downward, never. But as you were speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, she is so right. And even when I talk about self-love, and even with my podcast, the self-love season, that means, really to have an intimate relationship with yourself, finding out who you are so you can be able to not only teach other people on how to treat you or love you, but what have you show an example so they can be able to, like a domino effect type of thing in that source.
Right.
So when you speak of going from the root chakra down, out, that's amazing. And I thank you for sharing that here. A lot of people don't understand that, because one of my questions was going to ask about the chakra, and you already went there with it, because we've been taught, learn is that this is where we go up with.
Right.
Right
we
here,
never talk about where we came from.
No, never.
We're always starting here. Everybody's always open your heart chakra, open your heart chakra. Okay, but I got 3 more that we're not even talking about.
Yeah.
We aren't even addressing, and they tend to be ignored. And then we don't understand why we have so many issues here. We're either too open or too closed, right? Yeah. We're either open and we're giving everybody everything without giving ourselves anything, or we're closed and we're bitter and we don't know why.
Yeah.
We don't understand why this anahata, why it's so imbalanced, because every chakra works on the other. They are all connected. You can't just use half of them and throw out the other half. It doesn't work like that. So when you find that people are imbalanced, it's a good idea to start asking them questions about who they are based on where they come from, because that's really how we shape ourselves. We shape, especially as adults, we shape ourselves. We say, I am this person because this is where I come from, or this is what I was taught, or this is what I've experienced. So tell me more about what you've experienced. Tell me more about your root, about your ancestry. That'll help with your expression, with your confidence, and eventually with your heart, which the heart chakra is the connection between the physical, which is down here, and the spiritual, which is up here. So if this is imbalanced, so is this.
Yeah.
So is this, because you haven't balanced the gate. And you haven't balanced the gate because you have not addressed the physical.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. For those out there, how can they find it? How can they find the root? There's a lot of people that are lost. They don't know what their ancestry was. And I'm gonna say this. I remember going over to Italy. And in Italy, you see you see who they are. You see who they are through the cobblestone ground, the buildings. You see all of this. And I remember being there with a friend of mine. And I remember feeling so upset. And why I felt so upset is because at that moment, I knew, I was like, I don't know who I am.
Mm.
I can't, I come from the south side of Chicago, and it was
Mhm.
like, I don't see any buildings that make me feel like, like home. Like I was in
This
Italy.
is who I am. Mhm.
Yes. And I felt that there, and it was like, oh my goodness. And I really honestly believe that is truly what has started me going on to my spiritual journey as well
Mhm.
there, and wanted to connect to know who I am and where I come from. And it was luckily that my mom had did an ancestral chart to find out, where we come from, over there in Africa and all of those other things. But before, we didn't know that. I
Right.
remember asking my grandmother, like, such and such. She only knew from her parents and maybe her parents' parents, and
Mhm.
that's it, and nothing else. And if they didn't know anything, of course they wasn't telling us, because back then a lot of times, as a lot of things happen, everything gets swept up under the rug, and people
It
tend
has to be, because that's the
yeah.
only way you can keep control of a people. So the connection, the African American connection, is a very unique one. It's a completely different podcast, right? Because that's like a whole nother thing. But there's a reason that you feel untethered. There's a reason that you don't understand why your feet are not on the ground, why you can't look at a thing and say, this is me. I see this building in me. I see my ancestors in this thing, in this work. There's a reason for that. You are, by design, untethered. You live in the United States of America as an African American. You are, by design, untethered, right? And it takes a lot of work to tether yourself to your ancestry.
Yeah.
It takes way more work than a person who knows how far back they go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of oral history, because they can go to their native country and say, oh, this is where I come from. These are my people. And this is my grandmother and my great-great-grandmother. And we don't have that. So that it's going to take more. When I work with African-American clients, it's a completely different protocol, because to get to know yourself, you got to do different work.
Yeah. So for you, when was it the moment when you said, okay, I truly need to break it all the way down so I can know who I am and where I came from, so I can know that once I get here, I'm all the way balanced, where you started from? What made Shahada say, okay, I need to start here?
To be honest, I'm very fortunate. So I am half Pequot and Bessentucket, and my grandmother is diligent about us knowing where we come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to be clear, that is only on my mother's side.
Okay.
On my mother's side, I know everything. I know who my grandparents' mom. I know the story of my great-great-great-great-grandmother, who married a man who came to these shores looking for fortune and had 13 kids. And we keep going from there. Okay. So that is my grandmother. That is my great-grandmother on my mother's side saying, this is who you are. This is who you are. Never forget who you are. So I was very, very fortunate on my mother's side. On my father's side, we had to do some digging because my father is from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Right. And all his people came up from New Orleans.
Okay.
And that was work, trying to go back south, figure out who's what, where they came from, who knew who married who had how many kids, what the family last name is on that side, because it's completely different than the one that they changed it to when they moved to Chicago. Because they were trying, my grandmother and my grandfather on my father's side wanted to start a whole new life. So they didn't take none of the South with them.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's why, as a child, I did not have that thread that went all the way back, because they were like, nope, new name, new life. We doing everything different. So that was some work.
Yeah.
That took work. That was a little tougher. On my mother's side, it was super easy. It's still easy to this day. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, this is how easy it is and how much I lean back. Yesterday, I was talking to my husband about my Algonquin name and why I chose it and why we had to have a naming ceremony and that you choose your name. It's a really big deal. And he said, I'm so surprised that you chose that name, because the name represents water. And he's like, you're not very formless. My husband is a very formless man. We talk about formlessness a lot. And he said, I'm just really surprised that you didn't choose something fiery, because you have so much fire. And I explained to him that one of the reasons I liked the water name is because I have learned over the years to balance my fire, to not add so much water that my fire turns the earth into mud, and not to add so little that my fire burns the water off and it becomes steam, but right in the middle to just have the fire side of me and the water side of me move in harmony. He looked at me, he was like, I can't believe you chose a water name. And so I had to explain this entire thing to him. But that comes from my mother's side. My mother's side, very deeply rooted. I understand a lot about my history as an Indigenous person because of my family. They were like, this is who you are. Never forget who you are. Don't let anybody take your identity. That was a really big deal. As a kid, I thought they were harassing me. As I got older, I absolutely recognize the value. I'm like, thank you, Grandma, for hammering that home with us, because I was the oldest child. So I have to set the example for all of my younger siblings. So they were the hardest on me about honoring your family, about honoring your family name, about understanding where you come from. So that was very easy for me. That's not where I became untethered. I became untethered at work. I did everything right? I'm part of that last generation, Generation X, who did everything right. You went to high school, graduated from high school, went to college, graduated from high school, graduated from college, got your advanced degree, went into a career. And that career is supposed to be the rest of your life. And I allowed that career to take my identity. I became what I did. I was a journalist. I'm still a journalist to this day. It's been 30 years. But I started my journalism career in 1996. And actually 1995, if I count radio. So I allowed that to become my life. And by the time I realized that it wasn't my life, it was a very strange thing. It was a strange thing that happened between me and an executive producer. And she looked at me. I forgot what we were disagreeing about, but I was getting increasingly contentious at work. I was becoming less and less and less tolerant. And what was happening is I was practicing more and more and more yoga. The more yoga I practiced, the more calm I became, the more I wasn't interested in participating in the frenzy of a newsroom. The newsroom is very frenetic. There's always something happening. Somebody's yelling, somebody's cussing, somebody's throwing things. Your computer is beeping nonstop because there's alarms happening. Your phone is ringing. It's just a lot. And the more I pulled away from that and sat with myself, the less I liked being there. And this poor woman, who I love dearly to this day, I forgot what we were arguing about. We were about the same age, right? So we argued like peers, even though technically she was my boss. I didn't treat her like my boss. And I was crying and she was crying because we were also synced up. Okay? So we were highly emotional. We're both in her office yelling at each other. We're both crying. And she says, you don't even want to be here. And it was the first honest thing that hit me. And I was like, she's right. I don't want to be here. Why is that? Because I was at the point where I was asking myself questions. Instead of just recognizing something and realizing something, I started to ask why. And I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't know why I don't want to be here. This used to be my entire life. This used to be my entire identity. And now it's not anymore. And I don't understand what's happening. But that was the first step to separating myself from what I did. Because I was very much involved in, hi, I'm Shahada, I'm a journalist. Is one sentence came out my face, right? What I did was 100% tied up in who I was, to the point where even in public, you know, people who like they stand outside the grocery stores and stuff and they ask you to sign petitions. I would never sign a petition because I did not believe that as a journalist, I should get involved. That I should take sides. That I should be passionate about a thing and have an opinion about a thing because it might influence my ability to inform and educate. It was who I was. I never took part in surveys. And I still do to this day because it's an old habit, but I very secretly vote. Nobody ever knows who I'm voting for, why I'm voting. I'm very, very, very quiet about it. And that's because over the decades, That's what we were taught to do. You did not become the story. You told the story, but you never involved yourself in the story. And that translated to my real life. So I would get change.org petitions. I would see people outside, asking me, was I registered to vote? Yes, I'm registered to vote. Do you want to vote? Want to sign this petition? No, I do not. I'm a journalist. I cannot be involved. I can observe and report, but I can't be involved.
Interesting. Wow. So let me ask you this, because you see so many different, like CNN and Fox and all those other news, and they've always been allegedly pushing their agenda. How do you feel how the news or media is now, as they say that it's all influences, especially when it comes to social media, as they just banned TikTok, they banned TikTok and other, other stuff that comes online. What is your thoughts on that? Because you just said about, for you, this is something that we were taught to not have, well, I don't want to say not have an opinion, but not to take sides. But as a viewer watching the news, I see that a lot of these different things have influences that they try to push the agenda. What are your thoughts on that?
You named 2 cable companies, right? CNN, Fox, MSNBC, those are cable companies. I left. I have never worked for a cable company. I worked for network. That's one of the reasons why I left. To put it very gently and to be extremely PC, that is one of the reasons I left. I had a colleague one time have a meltdown. She and I are about the same age. Remember I said the newsroom's very chaotic. She screamed in the middle of the newsroom, just don't call it news. Call it anything. Call it entertainment. Call it opinion. Just don't call it news. Because we don't do that anymore. Just don't call it news so that I can feel good about myself again, right? I came up with Walter Cronkite in my, with my parents. I came up with Peter Jennings, with Tom Brokaw. I came up with the McNeil Lear Hour. Again, dating myself. People are always surprised in my age, but I'm like, oh, no. I watched real news. Right. I watched people say things without changing their expressions, without changing the inflection in their voices so as not to induce bias. I watched them give facts. That's why news was boring. You think about people saying, I don't want to watch news. News is boring. News is very entertaining now. We got graphics, we got colors, we got lights and sounds, we got sarcasm. They are clapping back at each other. You got the anchor from this network clapping back at the anchor from that network. It's completely entertaining. Yeah. And part of the reason is because the genre is dying. So they're trying to stay relevant by any means necessary. That means they got to join the TikTok generation. They're going to join the TikTok generation. Gen X was the last generation that the boomer and the greatest generation that trajectory worked for. Go to school, get a good job. That ended with Generation X. Millennials did not have the opportunities that Generation X have. Gen Z absolutely does not have the opportunities that even millennials have, right? So the application that we have about, just do this thing, right? We still, because we live in a pull yourself up by your bootstrap society, just do this thing and it'll all work out for you. And then when it doesn't work out, we tell them, well, this is your fault, right? You didn't do it right. You didn't choose the right major. You didn't go to the right college. You didn't get the right job. And it's completely untrue. The world has changed.
Yeah.
Our way of life is dying. Generation X is just, it's not our world anymore. And we have to reconcile that, right? So one of the ways I reconciled it was by leaving a profession that I used to be proud of, that I stopped being proud of because I didn't understand what was happening. If I am arguing with someone about a story that does not belong in my show about whether or not an actress has had plastic surgery because it is not news, then I know it's time for me to go. Right. And that's a true story. I was like, I'm not doing it. Talk to the news. I don't care. It's not going in the show. Not doing it. Took it all the way to news director. I walked in there very confidently. I was like, I don't care if I get fired. I'm not doing this. This is a stupid story. It's an idiotic story somebody got from the Daily Mail. I'm not doing this. Put it in somebody else's show. Make that somebody else's problem. It can't be in my show. Right. So when that started happening on a regular basis, I knew it's time for you to go.
You know it's time for you to go.
Right.
So now as you walking out now I'm just giving this scenario. So as you walking out the door, how did you go from news anchor with news reporter journalist
producer
to who you are now? Like, what was the transition?
I had started that journey. So I started that journey in 2009. I didn't actually walk away from network television until 2017.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. It was a very long transition. This was not some super quick, there's no such thing as an overnight thing, right? We've been doing all this work behind the scenes, and then people go, oh my God, it happened overnight. No, it didn't. It took 20 years. Right.
You just didn't see it. But
right. You didn't see it, but this has been happening all this time. Well, part of me being Generation X and knowing better than to walk away from a job without having something, I'm not going to have my mama call me and cuss me out because I walked away from my paycheck and didn't have nothing to figure out what I was doing. I just crossed over. I made the transition very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually I worked less hours in the newsroom, and I kept adjusting my schedule so that I could spend the time that I wouldn't be spending teaching because like my students were asleep, and then I would leave. I would literally leave the newsroom, run home, take a shower, put on my yoga clothes, go teach my classes. And then I would come home and pass out, get up the next day, do it all over again. Well, that of course became unsustainable. So eventually I was like, okay, I really like teaching. I want to learn more. One of the things that really helped facilitate my decision to leave was that I didn't have any more education time. I couldn't just leave for 6 weeks, right? Go somewhere and sit in the cave and learn about stuff. My boss would be like, absolutely not. You have 2 weeks vacation, but you can't take 6, right? So that was the other thing. And I remember asking, and I'm still friends with her to this day. I remember asking the head of the finance department, how to do this. How do I do this? Right. I'm an adult now. I can't do this. I'm not 20. Like I don't have 20-year-old time. How do I do this? And she says, what do you want? And I said, I want my time. I want the time. Because she asked me, she said, is it a money thing? And I was like, no, I want the time. This takes the time. This takes time, or I could be doing something else. I don't want to come in here anymore and give this thing my time. Mm-hmm. And she said, save a year's salary and then come see me. And I did not like that, because that sounded like a really long time. And I was really I was looking for some quick fix. So I did not appreciate her telling me that. But she said, listen, I have friends who are entrepreneurs and the money runs out in 3 months. She's like, I don't care how much money you think you saved, because you are less likely to change your lifestyle when you quit, because you're on a steady paycheck lifestyle. You used to that paycheck coming every week. Mm-hmm. You need to save a year, because in 3 months, you're going to be questioning your life choices. I quit in June. In September, I started questioning my life choices. And I had to call her, and I was like, okay. Fine, you were right. Thank you for telling me to save a year so that I'm not homeless or going back to beg my boss for my job back. Because he was very confused when I quit. He's like, what is wrong with you? What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to teach yoga and make soap. He's like, what? Why? He was completely confused. And I was like, you're the best boss I've ever had. The news director at the time when I quit was one of the best people I had ever worked with. Mm-hmm. And so when I went in there, I felt very confident that I could leave with love. Mm-hmm. It was not a hostile conversation. It was not a hostile transition. And although I begged them not to, they had a party for me. I was kind of amazing. I have nothing bad to say about that place. I have nothing bad to say about the people there. I love them all still to this day. I've been very lucky in that respect. I gave that network 17 years. Mm. And I remember every single year. Mm-hmm. I remember how hard we worked when it mattered. I remember being in the newsroom for 72 hours after 9/11. When it mattered, we came together. I will never forget those people. They will always be my family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't have any hard feelings about changing and moving into another aspect of my life, which is why I say I've been very lucky in that regard. It wasn't like, oh my God, the bottom fell out and I had to do something. I had to do a new career. No, this was something that I did because I chose to. This was a choice. It wasn't an easy choice. And like I said, it didn't happen overnight. The argument that I had with the executive producer was in 2015. I quit in 2017. It was still 2 years later. Because when I came home and I told my husband, and I was like, oh my God, I got into it with Jessica. And she said, I didn't even want to be here. And she's right. And he was like, we have a mortgage. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's getting ready to happen? Because you sound real emotional right now. And you know, I'm just saying that like bills come due every month. You sound like you're about to say something that you might want to think about this right quick. And I was like, no, I'm not saying I want to quit. And the reason I remember that conversation is because my husband is very clear. He doesn't say that much, but what he says, he's very clear. And the reason I remember the date is because he went on record. He said, let it be known on record on this day, July 17th, 2015, I am not telling you that you have to stay at a job that you hate. I'm telling you to make a plan. And that's why I made a plan. Because he's like, oh, no. You're not going to accuse me of trying to keep you at a job that you hate. I'm the terrible husband. I got you working. Nope, you're not going to do that. I am telling you to make a plan. And so I went to the finance office and I was like, I need help. I got to make a plan because I'm not staying here. And she's like, okay, save a year. Come holler at me after you save a year. And then we'll make a plan. And of course, it took longer than a year to save a year. So I quit 2 years later.
Well, you had a plan, though. You had a plan,
right?
And now we're here now.
It helps a lot to have a tribe, to have people at your back being like, "I got you," because you probably gonna fall on your butt. So when you fall, we gonna catch you, pick you up, dust you off, and send you on your way.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and we come back because you know what? I ain't asked you none of the questions that's on this. Not a one.
It is all good.
All right, my beautiful people. It's your girl, the Goddess Nyomi Bridging here on Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast. We will be back. All right.
Hi, I'm Dr. William C. Washington, aka Dr. Will, your friendly neighborhood counselor. One of the biggest things that I want to tell you about is that I'm a health psychologist, a licensed professional clinical counselor supervisor, an MDMA assisted therapist, a ketamine assisted therapist, a psychedelic integration prep specialist. I'm a researcher, a mentor, a supervisor, and also an artist. One of the biggest things about Washington Wellness Institute is that I created this to modernize the way that we look into the world. And I hate to say it, but we're finally getting rid of the old ways of thinking. I want to bring in the silver age of psychology. And to do that, I've even created a model called restorative enhancement modality that focuses on motive and purpose to make healing a lifestyle. I want to offer this to you. I want to offer this to the world and to anyone that's ready to learn. So, if you're ready, sign up today. Be kind to yourself and heal always.
Welcome to the Season of Self-Love podcast with Nyomi Banks, where every day is a chance to embrace self-discovery and personal growth. Join Nyomi on a transformative journey, streaming exclusively on Spotify and Breaker. With daily episodes from Monday through Friday, podcast is your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and self-love. Dive deep into engaging conversations about self-care, mindfulness, and personal development. Nyomi brings you expert insights, practical tips, and uplifting stories from thought leaders in the field. Embark on a journey of self-discovery and unlock the power of self-love. Mark your calendars and tune in to the Season of Self-Love podcast. Available every weekday on Spotify and Spreaker. Remember, it's time to prioritize yourself and embrace the beautiful season of self-love. Get inspired and join Nyomi Banks on the Season of Self-Love podcast.
All right, well, welcome back. It's your girl, the Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi Bridging The Gap podcast. And today we have the beautiful Miss Shahada Karim here. Hi.
Hello.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing. That first segment was amazing. I was like, I didn't get to ask really the questions on here. I'm just talking. We just having conversations. But I truly love and I thank you for it. Dr. Mike, you got any questions before I get into my questions?
I'm just listening. Go on, get yours off first.
You just listening. All right. So the one thing is that I love is that you are a yoga instructor.
Mm-hmm.
For you, how did you? So let me make sure that I'm saying this right. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay. How has practicing yoga influenced your personal journey and philosophy on life?
Yoga for me has taught me how to mind my business. Because I have a journalistic background, I'm nosy. Right? I'm always in the mix, always trying to find a story, always trying to find stuff. And that can be a very stressful way of living. So it taught me how to mind my business. When you're on your mat, it's only you and your mat. Everything else doesn't matter. So if you start learning what's happening and you start listening to what's happening on the inside of your body, you don't have time to worry about everything and everyone else. One of the most valuable, and I can say it's valuable now looking back, at the time it felt very traumatic, but I shed a lot of people during my initial practice times because I couldn't understand why these two parts of my life weren't coming together. Why all of these humans that I knew before I actually started to learn yoga, before I started to take it beyond just doing the poses and being the physical, starting to figure out why I'm breaking down and crying in the middle of my practice, right? Before that, I didn't understand why I couldn't bring these two things together. And something happened in one of my teacher trainings that I never forgot. And it was a lesson and a signal to me that I needed to make a choice. We, as part of our teacher training, we had to invite people to come and take a class with us as a teacher. And that training, I remember that training was very challenging for me because it was a lot of unlearning. I was older. I was the oldest person, one of the oldest people. I think there was one lady that was older than me, but I was one of the oldest people in the training. And so I wasn't very open. Remember, I came in as a journalist. I came in to gather information. I did not come in to open to anything, right? I just came in to learn, but I was a very aggressive student. And as a result, I was a very aggressive teacher. And so they said, you get to invite, just tell us how many people you're going to invite so that we know how many people are going to be in class. We were in a big room, but there were 18 of us teachers. And so if each one of us bought 2 people, that was a big deal. So they gave us about 4 weeks to do this. And I went out and I asked all of these people who I thought that they would be proud of me because I'm learning to do this new thing, right? This is a thing that's different. It's not like the old me. This is a new thing that I'm doing. And I thought that they would be proud of me. And I invited 10 people. It was a really big deal because of the space. So I had to go to my instructors and say, hey, I actually confirmed 10. Is that okay? And they're, oh, yes. Right? Please. So that day, our entire day, the day side of our training was set up to get our classes in line. And so your people would come to your class, right? And then it was almost a 24-hour training because at that night we had to come back. So we left, took a nap, ate, and then we came back for the actual session, right? And the feedback. What happened in my class was that no one I invited showed up. Not one person. And I was frantically texting them up to about 2 minutes before the start of the class. I'm in the bathroom just panicking. Where are you? Are you on your way? Are you trying to find parking? Remember, there's free parking around the corner. I'm giving all kinds of instructions. A few of them never responded. They just turned their phones on to do not disturb. It'll tell you this person phone is silenced. Do you want to notify them anyway? Because I was texting them so much, they immediately turned their phones off. And then the rest of them just didn't respond. And then one person said, oh, I overslept. My class was at 2 p.m. I overslept. I'm not going to make it. I was devastated. I was horrified. And I still had to teach that class. It's still other people in that class. I just had 10 of my people that were supposed to come, but it was still other people in that class. And I had to go in there and teach that class. And one of the things that I learned as a teacher was not to bring my crap in the room, right? Which I already had training with as a journalist. You don't bring yourself into your story. So I was like, okay, you can't take any of your anguish, any of your disappointment, any of your sadness. You can't take any of that into this class because these people do not know you. They don't know anything about you. And they are going to listen to every single thing that you say. So be responsible with your words.
Right. So let me ask you this, because I'm a very energy type of person. So knowing that you were in the bathroom, in that motion, in the anxiety, in that disbelief and everything like that, for you now, I feel that you know now, how do you release your energy to where it doesn't come off or transform onto someone else?
You take yourself out of the equation.
Okay.
It's something that you learn as a teacher. You learn not to influence your students with your bullshit. You learn that. That is a skill. I try to explain it to people when they think they can just jump in and teach. As a teacher, it is your responsibility to cultivate their energy, not yours. You take yourself out of the conversation. And by that time, this is like my third training. By that time, I'd learned how to drop it. I took a deep breath and I dropped it. And I walked in there empty. And I gave them a great class. Now, what's very interesting is that same habit of dropping myself before I entered the room was what kept me from being a great teacher. I had one of my instructors maybe 2 or 3 years after this, I had one of my instructors come in and take a class. And I was super excited because she was one of my favorite instructors. And I immediately harassed her afterwards. Feedback. What'd you think? And she wouldn't say anything. She said, please just give me a minute. Let me process everything. And I'll get back to you. Okay, fine. A month went by. I completely forgot about it. Apparently she did not. We had to go to a party for another yoga teacher who was going to India to continue her studies. We're at the party. And she said, are you ready for that feedback now? Now, please know that we're at the party and I have on full makeup. I am dressed to the nines. Do I want the feedback? I completely forgot about the feedback. I said, okay. She took me over to the corner. The very first thing that she said to me was, why are you such a liar?
Wow.
That was the first thing. I was not prepared for that to hit me. I immediately started crying. Makeup just running down. I'm like, what? She said, your students give you everything. I watch them. They give you everything and you give them nothing. You say the right words, but you don't give them any of your energy. You don't share anything with them. And they're looking at you like, please talk to me, help me, share. And you say all the right things. You do all the right adjustments. You say all the right things out of your face. But you are not a great teacher because you don't tell the truth. You're a good teacher, but you're not a great teacher. That was on a Saturday. I had a class the following day on a Sunday. It was during the Oscar So White protests. 6 blocks away from my studio? And I taught a Black Lives Matter class to a room full of non-Black people. They came out the room. Everybody was crying. The manager was like, what did you say? I said, I told the truth. And she was like, well, I don't know what that means. What do you mean? I said, I told the truth. Megan told me to tell the truth. I told the truth. This is how I feel. And I started teaching classes like that from then on. And my classes started to fill up. I have a student who's now a teacher, and she would be like, I miss church. Because I taught on Sunday. I miss your church. I miss church. Used to come in and we used to cry. It wouldn't be a dry eye. And from that moment on, I understood the value of cultivating energy, not holding it, not dropping it, also not smothering them with it, but cultivating an exchange. And this was a few years in. right? I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was, I was a great yoga teacher. You couldn't tell me nothing, which is why I was so proud when my teacher came in there. I was like, yes, I'm gonna impress her. I'm gonna teach the best class ever. And she was like, that is not it. I don't know what you did, but that is not it. And it hurt. But I learned.
And I'm glad you just turned that around like in less than 24 hours. She was like, I got that note, check.
Oh, yeah. It was so funny because what I did was I technically didn't teach a Black Lives Matter class. What I did was when the students came, I asked everybody about their ethnic makeup. And they were confused, but they were very, very proud to tell me, right? And I took notes on everybody. And I took notes about who was in what part of the room so that when I spoke on their particular heritage, I was making eye contact with them.
Okay.
That's what moved them. I was talking to them about something that was important to them. And then about 40 minutes into the class, I said to them, when a people take to the street in protest, is because that is the last way they know how to communicate. If you matter, so do they. This thing that you are proud of, your parents, your grandparents, your ancestry, your thing, this thing that makes you you, right? This matters to you, right? So does that. Even if you can't feel it because you can't particularly connect to it, it does not make a thing any less valid. It does not make a thing any less real. So if you are struggling to understand why this is happening, look at yourself first. That was pretty much the gist of the class. 75 minutes. They were crying. They came out of class. They were crying. Manager was like, oh my God, is everybody okay? I was like, they're fine. They're exhausted, but they're fine.
All right, so let me ask you this question. For anybody that hasn't done yoga or want to do yoga, how can they go about going into yoga? Something like this.
I would say, so we have this thing, right, in our country where we think that we should spend more money on something to be more effective. I would say start with classes on YouTube. Start free. Find out if it's something you actually want to do. You might think, oh, I want to do yoga. I want to, bend my body in a bunch of different places. I want to learn these things. Go and do something for free. Don't give anybody any money yet until you decide this is what you want to do. Go to the yoga class at your local gym. Right? See if this is what you want to do. If this is not what you want to do, now you're not out of any money. You lost some time, but you're not out of any money. Right? That would always be my advice. Go do something for free first. More expensive does not mean better. I'm a very expensive teacher. I do not necessarily need you to come and pay me and work with me only for you to get in 2 weeks and realize this is not something that you want to do. Right? I'm not interested in separating you from your money. I am interested in you doing work. I'm a very difficult person to train with because I don't pull punches. So if you're someone who needs to be coddled, I'm not the teacher for you. If you want a participation trophy, I'm not the teacher for you. I won't do that. And I tell people that all the time. I will not drag you along. I will fight next to you. I will walk next to you. I will hold your hands side by side and we'll walk through this fire together. But what we're not going to do is cry about things that we can deal with. You can cry, but you still got to do it. I actually told that to a client this week. She started crying. I was like, keep going. Cry, use it, use that energy, do it anyway. Life is hard. Live it anyway. That's the kind of teacher I am.
I don't want to do no yoga now.
Yoga was supposed to be peaceful.
It is peaceful, but you have to find it. And finding it is not necessarily a non-violent act. Getting there is a pain in the butt. You got to reconcile some things with yourself.
Oh my God, I love it. Look, see, we are past our time. I didn't get to ask not so many questions. This has been an amazing interview, and I should have just been like, I need 2 hours. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something beautiful. I knew we were going to have an amazing time, but I didn't know that it was going to be this amazing. I really did not. And I would love to have you come back whenever you want to. But what I want you to do right now, because we only talked a little bit about your company and what you do. If you can, just shout it out here and let them know. I think I asked like 2 questions from this.
It's
okay. Like we was definitely having a conversational here, right here. Actually, when I posted up the promo for you, there was a young lady was like, "Oh my gosh, she changed my life." Yes, she is like, oh, and I was like, okay, all right. Oh, we got people over here, hallelujah, over here. So I knew right then that it was going to be an amazing time, and I thank you so much for just sharing this space with me, with us here on BTG.
Thank you.
I really do. But I want you to tell them everything, what it is, all that you do, your website and all that. And we will definitely stay in contact and talk some more, because this has been, when I tell you my body is shaking, my body has been shaking this whole time. And it's been a great feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you. So go ahead. This is yours. You can do it.
So the nutrition and fitness company is HabibiBodySport.com. You can even Google Habibi Sport, because I own both combinations of the word, and it'll come up. So Habibi Sport is nutrition and fitness, and the Habibi Body technique is yoga, Pilates, calisthenics, and ballet. That's the combo that we use to get you where you need to go. Habibi Body, Habibi Bath and Body, is the skincare company, and that website is habibibody.com. You'll find both websites on each other. So you'll find Habibi Body on Habibi Sport, and you'll find Habibi Sport on Habibi Body. So if you're not sure where to start, just everything's on the homepage.
Right. Well, beautiful. Again, thank you so much. Yes, this has been, it's like we can sit here on it, but we can't, because I got to go. No, I'm just kidding. But this has truly been amazing. Dog Pound, you have no questions. This is the first time that he's quiet.
It was so much information. I mean, one thing that I did want to say, probably about 30 years ago, I worked for a company, and they did a yoga show. Mm-hmm. And we was pitching this show to Balance. The show was called Balance. We was pitching it to Discovery. And I think it probably about 35 years ago. I'm dating myself now. About 35 years ago. And, it wasn't out there on all the things. But from what I just felt from you is like they were just up there doing poses, doing things. They didn't put no feeling, they didn't put no energy in, they didn't put the thought in what you just displayed to me. What I just heard is like there was nothing behind it. It was four women on the show just doing poses.
Doing that, they were working out.
They were working out without that energy, without that knowledge on there. So, it makes me look at everything differently now. And that's going back 30 years ago, Yeah.
We have a very physical practice in this country of yoga. Yoga, a lot of people just want to do yoga so they can be flexible and skinny. That's a fact.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. And if I ask you to get in touch with yourself and you can't figure out why you just broke down and cried in the middle of my class, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah. I love that you say 360. I love that you say 360. I love that. I love that. Again, thank you. Again, thank you
welcome.
So much. This has been beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes. Again, my beautiful people, this is Miss Shahada Karim here. And make sure you guys follow her on her Instagram. You got an X, wherever you
got rid of X. You got rid of X. But I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook. X is too much stimulus. I can't listen. I'm old. I do. Most people drop me up the wall on Instagram. It's under my name, Shahada Karim. I'm very transparent, but I cannot be on X with 140 characters cutting up with the rest of the folks.
I feel you.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much again. This has truly been a pleasure. And we will talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good one. All right, my beautiful people. It's your girl, the goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi Bridging The Gap podcast. This has definitely been a beautiful show. And actually, it is sending me off because I got a great thing that's happening this weekend with some of my good girlfriends. We're doing a nice little tea party, and I think it's going to turn into like a sleepover, which is amazing that we're able to do this. But just to have this energy just transfer over to me was amazing, and I thank her for it completely. I thank you for all my viewers here that was viewed throughout the whole thing live. Thank you so much, because if it wasn't for you all, we probably wouldn't be here just as happy as we are, right? BTG crew, thank you all. I know we did not open the lines. I'm so sorry, but you know how it is when we get to talking here and just having a good time and just getting a lot of info. Yeah, but make sure you guys check out her website. It's Habibi Sports or Habibi's Bodies. Like you said, she has it all there.com. Check it out. See if there's anything that you want from Needy. When I say that this is an amazing website, she got a lot of things going on there that truly help you. I love that she say about 360. That's what I love. It's a full inside out, full around. That's all of it. That's all of it. All of it. But we will definitely be back next week. We got some amazing guests that's coming next month. Yes, we do have some amazing guests coming next month. I'm excited about that as well as don't forget to tune in to the Season of Self-Love, where next month is all about using our words impeccably. That's going to be a good one. That's the good month there for May. And just have an amazing weekend. And remember what I always say, be good to one another and yourselves, and always keep it sexy. Have a good one.
Hey, it's the goddess Nyomi Banks. And I hope you enjoyed that last episode of Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap. And if you did, please like, subscribe, press that notification button, as well as comment. I'll see you next week. Keep it sexy. Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap. This is where we talk about love, sex, relationships, cultural differences, and so much more.